What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Dolphins Daily, your daily dose of Dolphins content with your boy Chris Kane. Let's talk about the Dolphins. We all know 2024 was objectively a failure. Under 500, missed the playoffs. Tua got hurt. It's just, what are we talking about? It wasn't a great year. There was an article written today about some of the underlying causes of the season and some of the things that were happening in the locker room that weren't reported. Some of the issues with management and respect and all this good stuff, right? And basically, the article asserted that the people that caused the most issues last year are the people that we got rid of. And apparently, we have five players who was basically responsible for all the fines the team got. You get fines for a lot of things in football. Some of it could be like uniform malfunctions, like when Odell wore a Richard Mille watch, he got fined for that. But then he was doing the commercial for the watch, so it balanced itself out. If you come late to practice, that could be a fine. Um, there's a number of different things. If you break a team rule, it could be a fine, whatever it is. Evidently, we had five players last year who basically got all the fines. So that means that they were breaking rules continuously. It wasn't just a one time, oh sorry, I came late to practice, coach, you got me. It was I know practice is at 5. I'm showing up at 5:15. Why you mad at me? Right? So Coach McDaniel actually talked about we've been talking about the culture so much because that was a thing last year. People were just comfortable enough to know the rules, break the rules, and then not really want the consequences of breaking the rules. And I'm sure some of you are parents out there. You know when you're raising your kids, that's not how you do things. You say, hey, clean your room. Oh, you didn't clean your room? I'm taking your phone or iPad away. And your kid was like, why are you taking my iPad away? It's like, because you didn't clean your room. Remember when I told you that that was something you needed to do? Same thing here. If you know you shouldn't be, wearing these cleats because they're a violation of team rules, but you have a Nike deal, okay, cool. You get your Nike money, but we're going to fine you. You don't get to just do whatever you want, right? So this is what Coach Mineo had to say, and this is actually pretty succinct for Coach because he does ramble. He said, I think it's important that you let guys know that we're at the point in our team where guys are firmly aware of the expectations. And if your actions continually lead to finable offenses, that you're telling me without words that you don't want to be here. I think it's very clear. I think it's not an indictment necessarily of all, but we are subject to everyone's actions as a football team, so we'll address those as such. Now, we know for a fact one of these players that coach had a big issue with um, was Jalen Ramsey. There's still some like murky reporting about his exit, but every time that is brought up, there's a respect word thrown out there where Jalen didn't respect Coach, and I think Coach commanded respect. And Jalen's a vet, you know, probably future Hall of Famer, plays one or two more good years probably. So he's walking around like I'm a champion and a Hall of Famer. Who are you? I can see how you can be arrogant in that regard, but this is the coach, so you got to listen to the coach. And if you're undermining the coach while also being a high profile player, you can lead to other guys on the team also doing that. Like, oh, he don't respect coach, so we don't have to respect coach. Even if you don't have anywhere near the resume of Jalen Ramsey, and really no one on the team last year had his resume. Like the closest person would be Calais Campbell, and he's not a champion, but long term vet, and Calais will never do that. That's just not his personality. So no one else could really step in and be like, hey, I'm more senior than you. I got more rings than you. Chill out. You kind of get into the situation. There were four other players, though. I'm guessing Javon Holland and a few other people that were also did it because those guys aren't on the team anymore. So I'm fine with the purge. I think it makes sense. You couldn't if those guys weren't with the culture last year. You're not going to bring them to instill the new culture. They didn't. They're not buying what you're selling. Sometimes, like if you're a coach for too long, and this isn't Coach McDaniel's situation now, but there are guys with there or guys or gals who are coaches for a long time, and they say like the message gets stale. Like basically, like, hey, I know you've been doing this for a long time, but you're not reaching these players anymore. You may have seen it with Steve Spurrier, with Bobby Bowden. I mean, those are like in college examples. Even in the pros, like people are saying that about Mike Tomlin. Like, hey, you've been with this team for a long time. Mike McCarthy with Green Bay. There's a lot of times where you could be a great coach for a long time. Andy Reid with Philadelphia. You could be a great coach for a long time. And at a certain point, it's like, hey, it's not coming through. We're just not feeling you anymore. Coach McDaniel is still pretty young in his career, but he is at a very much inflection point. And I like the fact that he, letting them know, hey, if you're not with the program, that's cool. Like, I'm not going to put your name out in public. We're just not going to keep you on the team. No harm, no foul. We wish you the best. You just can't live. Hey, you got to go home. But you definitely can't be here. It's like, I don't care where you go. You're not staying here. And we actually have done pretty well by people that we've traded that thing up to this point. So, you know, that's why the culture is so important. Now, we talked about this on the last episode about how disastrous the first joint practice with Detroit was, where all the reporters on hand, from Detroit's local reporters to our reporters to just bystanders, were like, disaster. JV versus varsity, big brother, little brother, just awful. In day two of practice, offense bounced back for sure. We're moving the ball. Tua was throwing touchdowns. Quinn Ewers looked a little bit better out there. Obviously, Zach Wilson actually looked solid as well. Like, I don't know what the final score was because they do weird 707s, then like full play. They do a lot of random stuff in these joint practices, but the offense for sure bounced back. I don't know if it was because Twitter was roasting him. I don't know if it was Coach McDaniel like being like, "Hey, what are we doing?" Maybe it could have just been pride. Like after the first practice too, it was like we couldn't get things going. I'm super frustrated. I'm vocal about the frustration. I can almost bet when you go in the locker room when you just got pushed around for a couple hours, hey, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? You got to have that conversation and you got to lock in. I said yesterday that I thought it could have been a focus issue, which then ultimately goes back to the coach, but the players too. Like I imagine the plays that Coach Benego drew up were good plays, but team energy is kind of low. Guys are meandering around. Maybe they're pouting a little bit because they ran a good route and they get the ball. That's how things snowball. And I guess they decided for practice number two, we locking in, and I'm more than happy for that because I would have been dismayed if there was a second practice and they were like, "Hey, practice number two worse than practice number one." I'm like, "Yo, what are we talking about?" Like, you mean you got pushed around and you didn't even come back and get your lick back like that? That would be weird. But they definitely showed up a lot better. The defense still questionable. I saw a lot of reporting that was basically saying if the defensive line isn't great, there's going to be a problem on this team. That's like they didn't call out any corners in particular except Jack Jones. He got they were roasting Jack a little bit. It was like he got beat on the left side, then the right side. I'm like, oh jeez, like, let him like get in shape. He hasn't. He just we just got him. We got to like play him into shape a little bit. But they didn't call out anyone else in particular in the secondary. But it was like, hey, they're going to need some guys up front to do some damage because if that quarterback's holding the ball for a long time, it's not going to be good. And obviously, Jared Goff is super accurate. They obviously have a great offensive line. So, Detroit's offense also did pretty well today. But I'm more happy that our offense showed up. Like, we ran the ball a little bit better. Tua was more accurate. Got downfield a couple times. I know Tua had a deep shot. I was like a 50-some yard pass that he like slightly overthrew. But just the fact that that's in the repertoire is like, hey, that's good because you can't dink and dunk for the whole season. At some point, you got to get some money out here, right? You can't have, and we didn't have Tyreek playing, so whatever. But you can't have you fast outside receivers that you're paying a bunch of money and you're not giving them that money. At some point, you run a quick slant, a quick dig out, and then you just hit them with that out and up, just yeah, and then you load up, max protect, let it fly, and hopefully you get that big time play. Because then when you get back on offense, the secondary backs up a little bit more. Then all that stuff underneath opens up even more. Now it's much easier to run your offense because they're scared about that 50. You complete one long pass against most teams in the NFL, they go right to that clipboard. You see what you messed up right here. They start getting mad and they say, "Hey, take 3 extra steps backwards." And once they do, that little middle gap clears up a little bit, and that's what we like to work anyway. It's a beautiful situation. Just you got to hit one of those, and preferably early in the game. So that's just in the back of the mind the whole game. Like, oh man, I can't let Tyreek get behind me again. It's like that's right, back up. The more you back up, at some point you're gonna give it up. So I mentioned the secondary was not great against Detroit, and honestly, up to this point, it's not really their fault. They have guys playing who really shouldn't be playing right now. But here we are. So the question is, who is going to step up in the secondary? Like, is Cam Smith going to step up, or is he going to get cut after this game? Because that, I feel like that's very much what the situation is. Ethan Bonner, like James Marshall, those guys, I think they're going to be on a roster because they're young and we think we can cultivate them into something else. Obviously, Mike Hilton, Jack Jones, those guys are going to be playing. We understand how the situation works, but I don't know. Like, to me, this is a make or break for Cam. It's simple as that. I don't know if Detroit's playing their starters. I know we're not playing our ones on offense from what the reporting was today. Now maybe coach will change his mind, but from what I saw today, he said I'm not really planning on running the ones, which is why Tua played last week because he didn't want to play them this week. Doesn't mean decide the question he'll come back in game three. I think he wants to see who do I have behind the starters and how good are they. I know who our top three receivers are and our quarterback are and Devon A. We know that. But how good is Jalen Wright versus Ali Gordon? Like, what's up with that competition? And then in secondary, of course, like who's going to step up and at least show maybe I can be a starter? I'm assuming our recent acquisitions are kind of like penciled in to start. That would make sense. I'm not going to bring somebody in and say, hey, you're immediately our backup. But I don't know. Like apparently this is was not it was not a good it wasn't a good week in terms of how well they performed, but it's a good week in terms of the challenge they face, right? Because I think Jamison Williams is somehow not somehow he's underrated in terms of how hard he is to cover. It's not a somehow because one he's been hurt, two he's been suspended, so he hasn't quite been on the field as much as he should. He was my favorite receiver the year he came out of Alabama. Y'all know I'm partial to Alabama receivers and just players in general, but I was a giant fan of him when he got hurt against Georgia. It completely changed the complexion of that game, and I think Alabama would have won it. I think they would have been the champs had Jameson played because they had played Georgia in the SEC championship, and Jameson absolutely obliterated Georgia. They could not guard him. I encourage you to go YouTube it if you haven't seen the game in a while. He was unstoppable. He was just faster than everybody on the field. And you see him in the NFL. When he catches the ball in stride, he's out of here. Amon-Ra St. Brown, again, bubble top five receiver, amazing route runner, to like tactician, technician. He does everything right. So if you're a secondary person, you have a absolute speed demon. I didn't even get into Laporta. Another one. Like now you got to guard this young, big, fast tight end. It's the perfect thing to test how good his secondary is because very few teams, maybe I would say Cincinnati and Philadelphia, those might be the two teams where I feel like, all right, they have almost definitively better receiving and tight end like options. Everyone else, I feel like they're not as good as Detroit. Like they're not as well rounded. Laporta does everything well for a tight end. Obviously, Amon Ra is more in the short range, and Jameson is a complete home run hitter. So, depending on where you think you are as a corner, you can get some work across the board. I want to see after this crash course. These guys also practice against Tyreek and Jalen Waddle. I feel like what are we doing? Like we should almost have a good secondary just because you have to go against fast, good receivers in practice. I'm not saying you can stop either of those guys, but no one's gonna test you speed wise like Tyreek's gonna test you. So we know we've seen like film and we've seen like obviously some practices. Tyreek is constantly beating our cornerbacks in coverage, but that's fine. He's Tyreek Hill. But I'm saying you take Tyreek and then you go play other people. It should be throw. It's like if you ever worn like ankle weights and run around, and it's like you kind of get used to them, but you take the ankle weights off, and you're like, oh my god, I'm fast. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like if you've been guarding these guys, Jameson's a little bit taller than those guys is, and maybe a little bit more sudden in how he plays. So maybe that's a different matchup. But I'm looking for somebody to step up. I know we have high hopes of James Marshall, so maybe he's going to be the guy. But I'm looking at Cam Smith because I do very much believe if he does not play well in this game, that it's on the board that he's in that line of cuts that are coming afterwards, and that would be disastrous, really, to have a draft pick that high that completely doesn't pan out and just flames out. But if he shows up well, because he was playing special teams and doing a bunch of other stuff, I'm not here for Cam Smith to be a special teams. We have seventh round picks for that kind of stuff. We can get undrafted guys to do that. We brought you in to be our heir apparent at corner. That's what your job is supposed to be. We had super high hopes for you, and we've held your hand. We've kind of walked you to the water. You got to drink at some point. So I'm looking at Cam, rooting for him. Hopefully, hopefully he shows up. I don't know. We will see. My hope is middling. He's got to show me something. That's it. I'm sure you guys have seen these because I see it every day. Get questions about it all the time. ESPN has just been taking liberties about Tyreek Hill being traded, and it's gotten to the point that it's getting a little obnoxious, right? Where you're like, people are like, "Hey, is he getting traded? Like, are you hearing anything?" I'm like, "I'm not hearing anything." Apparently, another article came out today. This is a lot of articles today. I'm very happy about this. That Tyreek never put a formal trade request in. So we know his infamous, oh, I'm out of here. Y'all not trying to win. He never actually came to the team and formally requested to be traded. And the team only took like passive looks at people in the offseason for trade. Like we didn't have like a package fully set. We didn't say first and third pick swap. We didn't have all that set up. So it seems like he wasn't really trying to be traded, and we weren't really looking for the proper package to trade for him. So it seems like bluster. Like we weren't really trying to trade him. Now there is one fairly big asterisk in this where if Tyreek is on the team past August 31st, we owe him basically $16 million. It's like 15.85, but let's round up. If he's on a roster come September 1st, we owe him $16 million more. So if we trade him between now and then, though, we do not. So is he going to get traded? I don't believe so. I don't think the market's there. I think people are waiting to see is he washed? Is he still good? I think, I mean, even now he's recovering from a little mini injury. That's not the time to trade somebody. Off a bad season, currently hurt, your trade value is as low as it gets, right? So I don't see it. It depends fiscally, though. This whole offseason, Miami has been very conservative with one thing. We're not overspending for anything, and we're trying to set ourselves up for having money down the line. That's been the whole offseason approach. 1 year contract, 2 year contracts. James Daniels got a 3 year deal. Nick got a 2 year contract. Basically, everybody else got 1 year deals. We're locking in ones. If your people aren't good, we'll reload next year. If you are good, we'll probably extend you. But they've been locking that in. Money obviously is a factor. Once we paid Tua, the whole economy of the team changed. So if the idea that we can save $60 million by getting rid of Tyreek is more appealing than dealing with Tyreek for another year, then yeah, I think he could get traded. My personal belief, based on what I've seen, I do not believe he will be. I don't see a trade partner out there. I know the Chiefs keep being floated. The one maybe possible caveat would be the Commanders. That's the one possible one. I'm like, ooh, that's interesting because the Commanders have money and they have a cheap quarterback for another 4 years. They can extend him in a couple years, but like they don't have to like pay him any real money. Like that won't hit their books until what 2027, 2028. I mean, they got a runway. They're not paying. They let go of like Allen and a couple other guys on their defense. They're not paying anybody. Terry McLaurin wants $30+ million money. He's never really gotten paid probably at the level he is. So they decided to do a thing where, hey, we don't believe in Terry McLaurin long term, which is why we don't want to give him a big contract. We think Tyreek and Terry on a similar time. I think Terry McLaurin, I believe, is 29, and Tyreek is 31. So their age is they're not that big a difference. So they think, hey, they're on the same timeline. We can get Tyreek probably actually a little bit cheaper than McLaurin is right now. I can see a scenario where the Commanders maybe make that move. I think they want Terry to stay. I haven't even considered the fact that Terry will get traded. But if he's really like blowing up his chest and being like, "Hey, I need big money. I just saw what T Higgins got. I feel like him and I should be slotted in the same place," then maybe the Commanders. I don't see anyone else. I would say Carolina, but from what I've seen, Ted McMillan's look pretty good. I like Jimmy Horn. I think he's going to be the wide receiver four. I think Xavier Legette is good. So they or he could be good. So I think Carolina feels like they may be set. I don't think any other team would take like a big move on a receiver. So outside of the Commanders, I don't see a suitor really, especially not for someone who would have to give Tyreek an extension. So I don't think he's going to. But that $16 million number floating out there is appealing. It is appeasing, and I do think if ownership is like this is kind of a sunk season, let's just save some money. then we have about a week and a half to figure out how that's going to go. So I'm not, well, 2 weeks actually. It's the 15th. So we have 2 weeks to figure out how the team feels about Tyreek. Do we think we can win with him, or do we want to keep the money and try to get something back for him? In my opinion, we're going to keep him at least for this year. And then in the offseason, we have a decision to make. Are you going to give him any kind of extension and give him more Tyreek money and stay in that business, or are you going to let him go? We'll see what happens. But as always, guys, thank you for tuning in to the Dolphins Daily. We appreciate the love and support. Thank y'all for the likes and subscribes. We'll see you next time on Dolphins Daily. Peace.